Ever get that feeling like you're being watched?
Yeah.
Like there's someone there, but you can't see them.
I know what you mean.
Today we're going all the way back to 16th and 17th century England,
Okay.
when people really believed that ghosts and angels were a part of everyday life.
Yeah, fascinating time.
It really is. And to help us understand it all, we have Dr. Laura Sanka.
Right. Expert on all things angels.
Literally, I mean, she wrote the book on angels in this period.
She did. She did.
She's also a senior lecturer at the University of Exeter and co-writer of the blog Many-Headed Monster.
Okay.
So Dr. Sanka, her research shows that for people back then, ghosts were just, well, a natural part of life.
Like, they expected to see them.
Kinda. They weren't always seen as scary or evil either.
Huh.
Some people believe that ghosts would show up to, like, settle arguments or tell secrets.
Really?
Or even give advice.
Wow, it's like they were still part of the community even after death.
Exactly. It's interesting. They seem to appear more often during times of, like, social upheaval.
When things were chaotic.
Yeah, like when there was a lot of change happening.
Makes you wonder if they were drawn to that, like, energy.
Right. Now, when it came to what ghosts actually were,
Right.
Catholics believed that they could be souls coming back from purgatory.
Seeking prayers for their release, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But then the Protestant Reformation happened,
Big changes.
and they rejected the whole idea of purgatory.
Right, but people still saw ghosts.
They did.
Yeah.
And sometimes they still interacted with them as if they were, like, their deceased loved ones.
Even though they could be demons.
Well, that was the tricky part.
Yeah, that seems confusing.
It shows just how complicated their beliefs were.
Right, like Shakespeare even wrote about this in Hamlet.
Oh, the ghost of Hamlet's father.
Exactly. Seeking revenge, but also, like, raising all these moral questions.
Speaking of questions, Dr. Sanka's work points out something really interesting about women in this time.
Okay.
You know, they often had limited power in society.
Yeah, sadly true.
But some women use ghost stories cleverly to address social injustices.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you could say a ghost told you to do something.
Ah, people might actually listen.
Exactly. They used it to influence situations they couldn't control otherwise.
Sure.
Very. Like in cases of inheritance disputes or even domestic abuse.
Wow. They were using storytelling as a way to fight back.
They were. And these stories weren't just about practical matters.
Okay.
They were also deeply connected to grief and remembering loved ones.
Right. Trying to make sense of loss.
Dr. Sanka tells the story of Ralph Jocelyn, a 17th century antiquarian.
I don't think I knew him.
Well, after his father died suddenly, he found comfort in ghost stories.
In what way?
He started to believe that his father had actually foreseen his own death through a ghostly encounter.
Almost like a premonition.
Yeah, and that gave him a sense of peace.
Makes sense, I guess.
So you see, ghosts were a big part of their world,
For sure.
but they weren't the only supernatural beings around.
Right. We can't forget about angels.
Those winged messengers of, well, everything.
Yeah. Mercy, justice, all that.
Often depicted as human-like figures, but with wings, of course.
The classic image.
Right. And they were seen as, like, go-betweens between God and humans.
Okay, messengers.
Exactly. They were believed to protect people, guide them, comfort them.
All the good stuff.
But here's the thing. They also carried out God's punishments.
Ah, so not always so nice.
It was a duality, you see. They could bring messages of hope, but also deliver divine retribution.
Bit of a mixed bag then.
It was. And let's not forget their role in the Christmas story.
Oh, yeah. Huge part of that.
From the angel Gabriel announcing Christ's birth
Right.
to the angels appearing to the shepherds, they symbolized hope and divine intervention.
Powerful imagery.
Absolutely. It's amazing how these beliefs gave people a way to understand the world.
Yeah, like a framework for making sense of life and death.
And even finding meaning in the midst of all the uncertainty.
The unknown.
Exactly. But this whole system of belief, this framework,
Uh-oh, here comes trouble.
was about to face a major challenge with the arrival of the Reformation.
The Reformation. That shook things up.
It did. And it completely changed how people viewed both angels and ghosts.
Wow, I can't wait to hear about that.
Are you ready to see how this theological earthquake reshaped the world of the supernatural?
Absolutely. You know, it really wasn't just about reforming the church, though.
No.
It was way more than that.
Okay.
The Reformation, it really had a ripple effect.
Oh, interesting.
It impacted how people thought about the supernatural, too.
Really?
Yeah. Like, take angels,
Right.
Protestants, they wanted to, like, simplify things.
Simplify. How do you simplify an angel?
Well, not like a makeover or anything.
Right.
But they were kind of wary of how much emphasis the Catholics put on them.
Too much angel worship.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
They wanted to get rid of some of the more elaborate beliefs.
Like what?
Well, they didn't like the whole hierarchy of
You
angels.
mean those 9 tiers of angels, the seraphim and all that?
Exactly. Gone.
Wow.
They also weren't so keen on the idea of everyone having their own personal guardian angel.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, they thought that was getting a bit too close to actually worshiping the angels themselves. Instead, they really emphasized what the scriptures said about angels.
Okay.
And they discouraged all that speculation about their nature and what their roles were.
So basically, angels should just stick to delivering God's message.
Yeah, exactly.
No more
Yeah.
personal advice or settling disputes.
Well, at least not officially.
Right. Of course.
They just wanted a more focused understanding, you know?
Okay, more scriptural, less speculative.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But did people still think they could talk to angels?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, even with this new, simpler view.
Well, it might surprise you, but yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah, there were people who still tried to connect directly with angels.
Like who?
Well, there's this guy, John Dee.
Wait, John Dee? Wasn't he, like, into magic and alchemy and all that?
Yeah, that's the one.
What was he doing with angels?
He was obsessed with this idea that angels had all this lost knowledge, you know, like secret wisdom.
Yeah, and he thought he could get it from them.
Wow.
He even developed this whole angelic alphabet.
An alphabet, like to translate their language.
Exactly, like a celestial code.
That's wild.
And he would do these elaborate rituals to try and contact them.
I can't even imagine trying to decipher an angelic language.
Right. So was he just curious? Or was there something more to it?
Yeah, what was his goal?
Well, he actually saw it as part of his Protestant faith.
That's interesting.
He believed that by uncovering this lost knowledge, he could bring humanity closer to God.
So it's like a divine mission for him.
Exactly. So even with the Reformation trying to streamline things, there was still that desire to connect with the supernatural.
Yeah, it seems like there's always that tension between reason and faith.
No, absolutely.
Trying to find that balance.
Dee's story really shows that, you know?
Yeah, how culture shifts, but that yearning to explore the unknown, it never really goes away.
It's part of being human, I guess.
So we've talked a lot about angels, and earlier about their role in the Christmas story.
Right.
But what about ghosts? Did they have any part in Christmas celebrations back then?
That's an interesting question.
Because they were a big part of their world, right?
They were, but they weren't really associated with Christmas the way angels were.
Oh.
Yeah, ghosts were more connected to Halloween and All Saints' Day, times when people thought the boundary between the living and dead was thinner.
Okay, like spooky season.
Exactly. So angels and ghosts, they both existed in this world where the supernatural was part of everyday life.
But they had their own, like, separate roles to play.
Precisely.
So angels, with their connection to Christmas, you know, the nativity and all that,
Yeah.
they were everywhere in the celebrations.
Scripture readings, carols, you name it.
While ghosts were more for, like, remembering the dead.
Yeah, different times for different supernatural beings.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
About what?
How back then, the supernatural wasn't something to be afraid of or dismissed.
Right.
It was just a part of how they understood the world. Life, death, the whole universe.
And they used those beliefs to navigate their lives, to deal with grief, to find meaning.
It's a reminder that the past was a very different place.
For sure. The line between what we see and what we can't see, it was a lot blurrier back then.
I mean, really, can you imagine? Just going about your day and suddenly, bam, a ghost.
Right? I wonder if they had, like, designated ghost stories around the fireplace.
Yeah, especially in the winter, those long, dark nights.
I bet the stories got even wilder.
Oh, definitely. It's like we're looking back at this time period thinking, oh, how strange.
Yeah.
But there are still echoes of those beliefs in our lives today, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Like, we might not talk about ghosts and angels the same way,
Right.
but haven't you ever felt, like, a chill down your spine?
Oh, for sure.
That feeling that something's there even though you can't see it?
Like someone's watching you.
Yeah. I mean, humans have always tried to understand the unknown.
To find meaning in the mysteries.
Exactly. And it's like, we use stories for that.
Even today, we still tell ghost stories, watch scary movies.
All about exploring that feeling of, I don't know, otherworldly.
It's almost like we're not that different from those people back then. Huddled around the fire, sharing their tales,
I think you're right.
trying to make sense of the world.
And, you know, just like they used ghost stories to deal with social issues.
Yeah, they were really clever about that.
Well, maybe we still do that today.
How so?
Think about the stories we're drawn to, even the fictional ones.
Okay.
They can challenge how we think, make us see things differently.
Yeah, stories can definitely start conversations about important stuff.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a really interesting thought.
It is, isn't it?
So from 16th century ghosts to modern day storytelling, what a journey this has been.
It really has. Fascinating deep dive.
It is amazing how exploring history can lead you down all these unexpected paths.
But that's what's so cool about it, isn't it?
Finding those connections to the past,
Yeah.
seeing how it still influences us today.
Makes you realize we're not so different from those who came before.
I totally agree. And on that note, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to think about.
Okay.
What stories are you drawn to?
Mm.
What did those tales, the ones that really capture your imagination, what do they tell you about yourself?
Oh, I like that.
About your hopes, your fears, how you see the world?
That's a great question.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. Keep diving deep, everyone.
And don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more fascinating explorations of history, culture, and everything in between.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us.